Now I want to move back to talking about the second beast in Apocalypse chapter 13. In the previous parts I covered quite a bit of evidence that Benedict XVI is the second beast referred to in Apocalypse 13 because it says that this second beast caused people to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. And we see that Benedict XVI is moving toward causing people to venerate or worship John Paul II as a saint. It says that this second beast executed all the power of the former beast, the one who was wounded, in his presence. And Benedict XVI was the prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith under John Paul II. It says that the second beast did great signs and wonders to facilitate this process by which people would come to worship the image of the first beast who was wounded. And of course we see these false miracles during the reign of Benedict XVI, including fire coming down from heaven in the sight of men, which is specifically referred to in this context. And we covered how Benedict XVI's name in Greek, the language which the New Testament was written in, equals exactly 666. But one thing we did not discuss in detail was what does it mean when it says that the second beast comes, quote, out of the earth? When we discussed the first beast in Apocalypse 13, 1-3, the beast that comes up out of the sea that has 7 heads and 10 horns, we spent some time talking about how we believe this refers to an empire arising out of the Mediterranean. And the reason for that is because we see a biblical precedent for the meaning of beast out of the sea. In the book of Daniel, we learn that beasts out of the sea refer to empires out of the Great Sea, referring to the Mediterranean Sea, that arise. And one of those beasts out of the sea, which had 10 horns, was the Roman Empire. And so this new beast out of the sea, one is led to conclude, is another empire arising on the Mediterranean. And since it has 10 horns, it has the territory that the Roman Empire had. It's a new beast that has similarities to that previous beast. And so we see a biblical precedent for the reference to beast out of the sea. But what about the phrase beast out of the earth, and how would that perhaps relate to Benedict XVI if he is indeed the second beast? We didn't get into that, but there are some very interesting things to consider. Before I get into that, it must be understood that in the Bible, a person's name not only is what that person is called, but very frequently it represents that person's role, his quality, or his character, okay? For example, Adam, the first man, his name literally means red earth, clay, or dust, because that's what God created him from. He was created from the earth or the dust, and so his name represents what he was made out of. We see this kind of thing throughout the Bible. For instance, Abram's name meant high father, but God changed it to Abraham, meaning the father of the multitude, because the promise was to him and to his seed. And so he changed his name to represent what his role or his characteristics would be. Of course, we know that God changed Simon's name to Peter because he would be the first pope and the rock upon which the church would be built. Another example would be Isaac's son, Jacob. His name literally means supplanter, because he supplanted his older brother Esau and obtained the blessing of the firstborn from his father in place of his brother. And so his name represents what he did in his life or his role. Another example would be Ruth. Okay? Her name literally means friend, and that's what most characterized her. She pledged her loyalty to Naomi to go with her wherever she went. We read about that in the book of Ruth in Ruth chapter 1. So we see throughout the Bible, and there are many other examples one could give, that names of individuals do not just represent what that person was called, but frequently what that person's role, qualities, or characteristics are. We see this not only with good or just individuals, but also with evil individuals. For example, in the Gospel of Mark, in chapter 15, and in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, we read that our Lord Jesus Christ was presented in front of the people and the Jews with a prisoner named Barabbas. And Pilate said to the people, "Who do you want that I should release to you, Barabbas or Jesus?" And Barabbas was a murderer. And the Jews cried out that Jesus should be crucified and that they wanted Barabbas released. Well, Barabbas's name literally means son of the Father. Bar means son of, and Abba means father. So his name literally means son of the Father, whereas our Lord Jesus Christ is the true Son of God the Father, the eternal Son, equal with the Father. So it wasn't an accident that at this crucial moment of salvation history, that the Jews clamored for this false son of the Father, this prisoner and murderer, Barabbas, and rejected the true Son of the Father. So his name, Barabbas, represented what his role in life would be, to be a false choice, an anti-son of the Father, if you will. And so there are many other examples throughout the Bible where individuals' names correspond to their characteristics, their role in life, or their qualities. With that in mind, I want to go back to examining what I believe the meaning of beast out of the earth is as it relates to Benedict XVI. And just as we looked at the book of Daniel and the Bible to give us insight into the precise meaning of beast out of the sea, the Bible tells us that beast out of the sea means empire out of the Mediterranean. Well, is there anything in the Bible which gives us an insight about the meaning of beast out of the earth, or beast on the earth? In examining the Bible, as far as I know, the only explanation and detailed reference to beast on the earth or beast out of the earth comes in the book of Genesis. In Genesis chapter 1, we read about how God created the heaven and the earth, and he divided the light and the darkness, and he created the animals. And we read that he created the great whale and the creeping creature, and he created the creatures that move and live in the sea and fill the waters. Okay? And in Genesis 1:24 we read, "And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature in its kind, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and cattle and every thing that creepeth on the earth after its kind." As we see here, beasts of the earth or out of the earth refer to the land creatures, the animals that live and move on the earth or in the earth. Now, what is Benedict XVI's name? His name is Joseph Ratzinger. That's quite a distinct name, Ratzinger, and of course, it denotes a rat. In German, English, French, Italian, Spanish, Latin, and in other languages, the letters R-A-T begin the word for rat. Well, what is a rat? A rat is a land creature that actually lives in the earth. Rats live in burrows in the earth and under the earth. Here's a picture of a rat coming up out of a burrow where it lives, coming up out of the earth. So a rat would be a prime description for a beast that lives on the earth that actually emerges from the earth. And as we discussed, the names of individuals, especially important and significant individuals in biblical history, frequently represent their role, their qualities, or their characteristics, good or bad. And so if his name signifies rat, and all of this evidence points to him fulfilling the prophecies about the second beast who comes up out of the earth, and a rat would be a prime example of a beast that comes up out of the earth, I believe that the reference to beast out of the earth is telling us, again, that Joseph Ratzinger is the man who fits this description. For suppose that St. John said, "And I saw a rat with 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon." I think it would be pretty obvious who he was talking about. But instead he said, "And I saw a beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. Well, a rat is equivalent to a beast who comes up out of the earth. So it can be a less obvious way of saying the same thing. There's something else that's interesting. In the previous parts we covered how the beast which was and is not is returning. The pagan Roman Empire is coming back into a new form, causing people to worship false gods and a pagan king in Rome. Well, it's interesting that in the pagan Roman Empire, the emperor would not only cause people to worship himself and the false gods he worshipped, but deceased emperor figures. Therefore, it makes sense that the second beast who is causing people to worship the previous king who is wounded is also a king over Rome. He is also an emperor figure. He succeeds to the same position as anti-Pope John Paul II, causing people to worship him, just like a new pagan Roman emperor would cause people to worship a deceased Roman emperor.